Yep.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Talking Brazil Ball for another episode of all things Brazilian football. Another look at the weekend's fixtures. We're into match day 5 now. George is with me, my co-host. How are we doing today, George? Have you been enjoying the weekend's games and everything?
Hi, James, and hello to everybody. Everybody.
Oh, you've botched the intro music there.
Yeah, I did. And then I was thinking, oh no, I haven't done it. And then acoustic music started playing, so I'll just leave it alone now. But yeah, I'm okay. Thank you, James. I've been enjoying the football over the weekend. Obviously, it's a bank holiday over here in England, isn't it, today? So, the weather seems all right, although it's a little bit stuffy, isn't it, really? And feels a bit close. But I notice you've got your Brazilian shirt on there as well, and a haircut, James, as well. For
Yeah,
those
that's true.
eagle-eye viewers on YouTube.
Yeah, they might have noticed it's a bit shorter, not too much, but just a kind of a medium trim. But yeah, I've got the away shirt. I think it's still it's not the current one anymore. It's the old one now, isn't it? The old away shirt, with the kind of the leopard print green trim on the edges.
Oh yes.
Thought I'd go for that today. Yeah, it's a bit stuffy. It's been a really nice day actually, but it's just started raining a bit, so a little bit kind of close. But yeah, we're coming at you on a bank holiday Monday today, slightly earlier than usual as I'm off on my jollies next week or later. What we on Monday? Yeah, later this week on Wednesday, I'm jetting off somewhere. So we're just coming at you a little bit earlier than usual. But don't worry, we've still got plenty to get into and to cover. Although it's worth pointing out just before we do run through the fixtures that, of course, there were some postponements this week in Brazil. So there were 3 games postponed, games of Inter, Grêmio, and also Juventude. So the 3 teams of Serie A who are all from the Rio Grande do Sul. And if you've been following news at all, you'll know that there's some really severe flooding over there at the moment, some really tough weather conditions, and it's been really serious actually. The last kind of reports, 75 people have died and over 100 it looks like are missing currently. So obviously our thoughts are with those people, and there's things much more important than football, and as in such conditions games should not be going ahead. So they've cancelled those 3 games this week, and I know, George, you'll join me in wishing the best to everybody affected by the flooding and the conditions.
Absolutely, James. Yeah, all the best to everybody, affected by that horrible situation there in Grande do Sul. And I know a lot of the football teams in Serie A as well and beyond as well. Obviously, they bit of solidarity amongst them all. I noticed Garlo in particular. Obviously, my team they put they lit up the stadium in the colours of the region. I think it was Saturday night, even though the team were playing in Rio. I noticed on social media a lot of the team's accounts have been, wishing everybody all the best. So they've come together, and to be honest with you, James, I'd like to see a little bit more of this in sort of England in sort of sports, in terms of, like, Cruzeiro has postponed their game, didn't they? Because almost in solidarity with Inter. I don't think you'd get that sort of thing maybe in this country. So
no, I mean it was a bit. I mean, I don't know exactly, but if there was some reason that Inter couldn't travel, but the game was in Belo Horizonte, was scheduled Cruzeiro against Inter, and they did cancel it. So it was because of the conditions, and it does seem, I mean, I haven't verified that, but it does seem as though it was in solidarity rather than a logistical thing. It does seem as though it was made, with the players and obviously the staff and everybody at Inter in mind. So yeah, you're right. I mean, over here we'd probably see some point scoring and people trying to get a leg up, and but yeah, I mean, who knows whether it's still early in the season, so the games don't have too much riding on them. I know Brazilian football is famous for being pretty volatile in terms of these kind of things. So, but yeah, for the moment, like you say, brilliant to see solidarity with those clubs affected, and we have to wait and see whether the games this weekend will go ahead. But yeah, so this week we do have a shortened fixture run through for you, but there were still 7 games that went ahead and plenty to get into. So, Georgia, I don't know if you want to run through them now, but obviously, we our thoughts with everybody out there affected and going through something that's pretty unimaginable, really.
absolutely, James. Yeah, terrible stuff. Hopefully, the weather, calms and they can really sort that situation quickly, find the people that are missing, and rehouse the people that have been. I think 80,000 people have been, sort of had to flee the homes and things, or the homes been obliterated by the weather. So hopefully they can sort it out quickly. And like you said, best wishes. And and we're thinking about them over here on the podcast. But yeah, just to run through, like you said, there were 7 games, so we'll run through them, and then we'll get on to more in-depth look at the games that we both have been covering over the weekend period. So I'll run through the results as follows. So it did start on Saturday, the 4th of May, Saturday evening. It was Fluminense 2, Galo 2. A good comeback, as I'll cover shortly, from my team Galo to finish it at 2-2. Red Bull Bragantino 1, Flamengo 1 was the Saturday night game. Into Sunday morning, early hours of Sunday, 1 a.m. English time. Corinthians 0. Fortaleza 0, a bit of a one to forget there. Into Sunday evening, Atletico Paranense 1, Vasco da Gama 0. As well, Sunday evening, Vitória, 10 men, Vitória 1, Sao Paulo 3. And then one that I thoroughly enjoyed, actually, James, on Sunday evening was Botafogo 1, Bahia 2. And then to end the weekend, Cuiabá can't still buy a win. They went down 2-0 at home to Palmeiras. And that concludes the weekend's results, James.
Yeah, Cuiabá can't get even a point at the minute. Still pointless in Serie A this season. And I must say, actually, George, well done. I think you got it absolutely bang on there. I know you've been struggling with Cuiabá.
Yeah. I think we were doing a bit of practice work with the other night, James. You
yeah.
So how to say it. And Cuiabá, yeah, it just seems to have clicked. Maybe it was just something in my mind just went like that, and I could now say it. I don't know, but yeah, they still can't win. Palmeiras, finally scored a goal, and I know we're going to touch on them a bit later on in the pod today. So yeah, but that was a good result and a much needed result for them. But yeah, one that I did thoroughly enjoy, like I said, Botafogo, defeat to Bahia, which, I don't know if anybody listening watched the game. It was streamed live on YouTube for free. I think it was the first one, for a long time or even ever. I know John Textor, the Botafogo owner, is trying to sort of grow it a little bit, I think. And it was a free broadcast late on a Sunday night. And it was a great game. I was very impressed with Bahia, to be fair. On the break, very, very dangerous. Little bit of poor defending for their winner, but yeah, it was a fantastic result. And and I've named this episode after Bahia because they're very much in the hunt now, and the fantastic start, James.
Yeah, they've started really well, and it was good to see the chance given to take in the game. We've been struggling to be able to watch the full game. So yeah, you watched that. We might touch on it again a little bit later, but for now, let's get into the games of the week. So you've had a bit of a poor run recently. I mean, you had a couple of 0-0 draws back to back, but this one was different. So you were covering the 2-2 Fluminense against your team, like you said, Galo, at the Maracanã. And it ended up being a bit of a roller coaster, didn't it? So what did you kind of pick out from that, George? What were your takeaways from Fluminense 2, Atletico Mineiro 2?
Well, at the end of the day, James, the take-home message from me is it's a better point for Galo than it is for Flu. Flu 2-0 up. I mean, I sort of text you saying, "Oh gosh, not been a good day for me." Obviously, my team had earlier on in the day had gone down, and very frustrating. And then I see obviously Fluminense beating Galo. But yeah, ultimately, James, I think Galo has got to be happy with this. Going down 2-0 with 15 minutes left, or just there or thereabouts. And what really struck me is that the sort of the goodness of the substitutions in what the managers did here. Not only Denise, but he made a substitute right on in the 60th minute, which they were 1-0 up at the time, and he made a triple sub in the 60th minute actually, and then a minute later they got the second goal. Renato Augusto got it. Alexander Gomez came on with him, and he set that one up. But also, I've seen the fans sort of bemoaning him as well, Denise, for his decision to take off Lima, who I think was having a very good game. A lot of fans that was right before Gallo made the sub, which affected the game in their end as well. A lot of fans bemoaning the fact that Lima came off. A minute later, Vargas comes on for Hulk, and he scores a minute later, 2-1. And then 6 minutes later, it's 2-2, and it's Vargas again. So a lot of Fluminense fans a little bit disappointed with Denise for not making, for taking that man off. But there's no doubt it was a game for the super subs, James. You know what I mean? A game for super subs. Vargas, I know we'll touch on him a bit later on as well. But, come on, score the goal and then score the goal to get yourself, to get your side level. Denise was very, very disappointed at the end of the game, understandably. And I think he was bemoaning the fact, obviously, that I think that they'd lost 2 easy goals. It was a couple of mistakes that had led them to come and draw the game. And he said this, James. I've got a quote from him here. I think we had a very good first half, he said. In the second half, they came back better, but with the changes, we grew again. We scored the second goal. We had chances to score the third. When it was time to make the change, Atletico's throw in a dead ball. The player who scored the goal came out. It was his first touch on the ball. Collective marking failure. We conceded the goal. And in the second goal, too, we scored with everyone behind the ball. We have to correct it. So he's not happy, basically, with the easiness in which Gallo got back into the game. I think there's a very sort of defeatist attitude from Marcelo as well, who said something along the lines of, "Oh well, it could have been a lot worse," or something like that. We could have easily lost the game. So I think there is a feeling that actually Fluminense got away with this a little bit as well. Actually, that.
Yeah, I mean, maybe. I mean, the Gallo had been going well prior to the game. Obviously, Flu hadn't been doing so well, but like you said, it's probably a better point in the end for Gallo. Even if Flu have been slow to start, it's still a tough game away at the Maracanã. So they'll certainly be the happier of the two teams. I don't know what do you think's going wrong with Flu at the moment. They've obviously picked up 5 points from the first 5 games. Not the start we expected. I mean, certainly I didn't. I had them down as potential winners, and it's not looking that way so far. I mean, still early on, 5 points off the top. It's not irreparable, but it's been a really poor start from them. And what do you think is going wrong, really?
I think it's the manager. Maybe I think he needs to maybe swap the team around a little bit. I think it's just not, doesn't seem to be working. I know there's a lot of experience, James, in this Fluminense side, but maybe it's aging a little bit. Maybe it just needed that little bit more turnover in the off season that they didn't do really. And I think maybe there's just a bad feeling. Like I said, Marcelo, very defeatist in his sort of attitude of it. Really, I thought that was, they didn't seem like they were 2-0 up, but he's in the end he's sort of saying, well, it could have been worse. We could have lost the game, which they could have done, but they were 2-0 up with 16 minutes to go, and at that stage you've got to shut the door and get the 3 points. And I mean, they are unbeaten, Gallo, in since Milito has come. They're unbeaten. And he was happy with it, but he said he didn't celebrate a draw. He said, "I don't celebrate draws." The team were angry, he says, in the changing room afterwards because they didn't win the game. And I suppose you can understand it from away because they've been doing well. Fluminense, like you said, even though it's a difficult looking game, they still, managed to They should have really won that in a way. Fluminense are not in a good position at the moment, not in a good way. And you can understand why his players might have been a little bit disappointed. But at the end of the day, came back from 2 goals down. Me as a sort of a newbie supporter, I was all right with that. You know what I mean? If you come back from 2-0 down, you're fine, aren't you? Really?
Yeah, it's quite a difference in mentality as well of that, and it shows perhaps which team will be going more towards it. There's a really good mentality from Milito, obviously new into the club, and he's had a really good start. So we weren't sure how it would affect them losing Scolari so close to the start of the season, but he seems to have kind of hit the ground running a bit. Is there anything else you'd like to say on the game just before we move on? Just I'm wary of time a little bit. Anything you kind of like to finalise on the end of the game?
No, not really, James. You know what I mean. At the end of the day, like I said, it was a draw. It seemed like quite an action-packed game. Like I said, substitutes. You got to commend both coaches for the substitutions that they made, and they made immediate effects in this one as well. So a draw, probably a fair result. They'll go again, but I'm sure Gallo will be, challenging higher up than Fluminense definitely will. So we'll wait to see, but a point apiece.
Yeah, it looks that way early doors, but things can quickly change. But a good game anyway for you to cover. So my one wasn't quite as much of a goal fest this week. So I was covering Atletico Paranense against Vasco da Gama, 2 teams at opposite ends of the Brasileirão at the kind of the end, the start and the end of play really. So this was on Sunday evening, Liga Arena, Curitiba. And it was really a game that kind of was over pretty much within half an hour. I think the game changing or the game defining moment in this one was in the 16th minute. It was a red card for Hugo Moura, Vasco da Gama player, midfielder, and it was a really, really sloppy moment. He tried to play a back pass to the goalkeeper, played it short. I don't know who the Paranense player was who was onto him, but he was quickly onto him, bearing down on the keeper, and Moura just had no other choice. He had to just kind of pull him back, and he was red carded. And the funny thing about this was that Moura is a former Atletico player, so he's actually only just joined Vasco from Atletico Paranense. It was only his 4th game for Vasco, and I think I read that he was initially on loan, and the loan was triggered to a permanent move once he played 4 games for Vasco. So this was actually the game that triggered his permanent signing from the team he was playing against, and he got a red card in the 16th minute of the game, and the Atletico Paranense fans were made up with this. They were actually spotted. There was a video of them chanting his name, Hugo Moura, during the game. Because he really handed them this on a platter. Vasco were up against it anyway. Atletico have started pretty well, and Hugo Moura, the former player, kind of scores a real lone goal in the sense of getting himself sent off in such a sloppy way as well. And the Atletico fans were chanting his name. But other than that, beyond that, it was comfortable really for Atletico in many ways. They scored about 10 minutes after that. A chap called Eric. I think we had Derek last week, and this guy's called Eric. Pretty nice finish, nice team move. Finished it off pretty easily, and from there they just battered them. From the highlights, it just looks like it was one-way traffic. They hit the post 3 times, Atletico, and they could have been out of sight. But there's always that danger when it's just 1-0, and Vasco kind of hung in there, and they were actually disappointed themselves. They felt there should have been a red card for Kike Rocha, who's a Atletico centre back. I think it was a handball, and there's a referee commentator. We have. What's he called? Dermot Gallagher goes on Sky, F Watch, and they have something similar, and it's a chap called Paulo Cesar Oliveira, and he was actually adamant that it should have been a red card from Kike Rocha. So they might have got away with one. How many times we see it where it's just 1-0 and the team with the 11 men are dominating, and then all of a sudden it can turn on a moment like that, and it didn't go Vasco's way. So it just means that they're still kind of struggling, Vasco. I think they're just inside the relegation zone. They really haven't started well, and they did actually sack the manager, George. I think it was just after the pod last week. Ramon Diaz, Argentine, was sacked on the 28th of April. So maybe just before we did the pod, but he was sacked after just 43 games. So they've actually got an interim manager at the moment, Rafael Paiva. And he was relatively happy with the performance, I think, after the game, because they came through a really tough moment, first half an hour or so, and kind of came back into it. But obviously they weren't able to come back into the game. But he was relatively happy. I think maybe some signs of improvement. So we'll see who they turn to as a new manager. But from Atletico's point of view, it leaves them top of the table, 10 points, level with Bahia, but top on goal difference. And Cuca has come in and started pretty well, and they're just going under the radar a bit. But where other teams, bigger sides, are struggling, they've just kind of shot to the top. And I think one thing that maybe is slightly a negative for them on the game was that Canobio, who we've highlighted in the past, Obi-Wan Canobio, he went off after 10 minutes with an injury. So I think it's suggestions of an ankle injury, but we haven't quite seen how long he'll be out for yet. But I don't know if you saw any of the game, George, or what you made of it.
I didn't actually see much of it, James. Just seeing the highlights. That goal, I actually quite like the goal, Eric. I kind of like that goal. But, Paranense, I mean, I sort of said, I nearly had them down as my surprise package, didn't I, right at the start of the season? And I think you kind of said, not they wouldn't be too much of a surprise, but they're sitting top of the table. I sort of had a feeling Cuca might do some good bits. So it's looking that way at the moment. Vasco da Gama, I didn't realise that they'd sacked the manager actually until just now. So yeah, look, they're in trouble. Like you said, they are dropped into the relegation zone. The 2 points adrift of Fluminense. So, can they get up with a new manager? Let's wait and see. But certainly not a goal fest for you to look at, but an interesting game the same way, James.
Yeah, it was interesting, and I just want to clarify that, because Atletico, it would be a surprise if they won the league, definitely. But I think my point was on that you mapped out a full table, and I think you'd put Atletico Paranaense in 7th, and then you'd have them down as a surprise package. It was something like that. I thought, well, you can't put them in 7th, and that's not going to be a surprise, is it? So if you put them top of the table, then yeah. So I think. Yeah. You said that in the last one. I thought, well, yeah, they might be a surprise package. Them winning it would be a surprise, definitely. But, not from where you placed them in your predicted table. I think you can't have them as 6th or 7th and then say they're a surprise package. So that was the whole point.
Well, fair enough. Yeah, I suppose you're right, and yeah. It was one of them. I don't know, and I was basing it on probably nothing really. Though I think I looked at Cuca's record and I thought maybe that he can do something there. I know he's won it in the past as well. So they've started really well, and let's wait and see if they can continue. I think that the team's all right, isn't it? They've got some good experience as well in there, as well as some good young players. So let's wait and see. It was a good result though, and they move on, don't they?
Yeah, you like Cuca, and I think they do have a couple of good Fernandinho's still in there, Fernandinho, yep. And one to watch as well is the goalkeeper Bento. I know he's been linked a lot with European clubs. I think Chelsea were even keeping an eye. I mean, Chelsea are linked with everybody, aren't they? But Chelsea could do with a keeper, and I think he's 24, relatively young for a goalkeeper, and he's been in the Brazil squad already. So he's one to kind of who can make a difference. If you've got a top goalkeeper, then you're going to be, more often than not, you're going to be in a higher position than you perhaps should be, because the keeper's going to bail you out. So one last thing I just wanted to note on Atletico Paranaense is that their former player, big name, Vitor Roque, has been in the news quite a bit this week, because he's obviously went to Barcelona in the January window, having signed for them last summer, but he's not been a success really at Barca. And I know his agent's been talking in the press a lot this week, saying that Xavi isn't even talking to him. He's basically just bombed him out of the team, and he's not explaining anything. And there's been suggestions that he may leave actually this summer. And I know Barca were perhaps looking at a loan, but I've just seen some reports earlier on that if he was to leave, it would actually be his agent is pushing for a permanent transfer away from Barcelona. So a bit of a shame to see it go sideways. But Barca isn't a club for these young players at the moment. It's a bit of a basket case, and a player like Vitor Roque needed more stability and go to a club who will play him, and he'll get regular time, and there won't be quite so much of a circus. And I was listening to Fabrizio Romano speak about him earlier, actually, and he was saying that Spurs were incredibly interested in him before he went to Barca, and they might potentially come back in again. So that's one to keep an eye on. And again, just a bit of a danger as we go on to speak later in the podcast about another really top talent in Brazil. And maybe just a word of warning. I don't know if you have any thoughts on Vitor Roque's situation, George.
Well, yeah, I mean, it was a shame, really, James. He burst on it a little bit. I think he started quite well, didn't he? And
Yeah,
he
he did,
scored a
yeah.
goal, and I think he got into the Brazilian team as well, didn't he? So,
Yeah, he's had a cap.
there was a bit of fanfare around him, and it's a shame to hear that sort of thing goes on. But like you said, Barcelona at the moment, and have been for a few years, to be fair, little bit of a mess, little bit of a sort of unpredictable sort of club, really. Lots of debt, lots of other things going on which perhaps you don't really know about, and it's not a steady ship at the moment, like you said, and it's maybe he'd benefit from coming to the Premier League and working out another way, another route, to sort of stardom if you want, really. But that's a shame. But for everyone that works out, there's one that doesn't, isn't there? So you know what I mean. It's a problem in football, isn't it, where you hype these young players up so much. Like you said, maybe there's a bit of a warning to the lad we'll speak about, a bit later on. But they hype them up so much, and there's a lot of pressure on these lads. And I don't know how old he is. Is he 18 or 19 or something?
19, yeah.
And yeah, so he's a young lad, and there's a lot of pressure. Maybe it would have been better to not go to Barca, to go to a team like Spurs, say, at first, and make his mark, and then go to a real heavyweight kind of side. But that's the way it goes. Like I said, sometimes it just doesn't work out. But I'm sure Paranense are still very proud of the player that they brought up, and and wish him the best. And maybe it wouldn't be out of the realms of possibility for him to come back to Brazil, maybe just to find his feet again. Let's wait and see.
Yeah, perhaps. I mean, he wasn't a youth team product at Paranense. I think they bought him from Cariti, but they bought him from somewhere. Or maybe Cruzeiro. I think Cruzeiro. But, maybe they could bring him back, and he would give Cuca just another option. But anyway, let's move on. So we're going to look at the awards again this week, as we always do. Anybody who's listened in the past, we like to hand out a player of the round, a young player of the round, and a goal of the round for every match day. So the player of the round, there was a couple of candidates in this, but we have gone for Eduardo Vargas, who you did touch on there in the Flu Gallo game. He came off the bench with about 16 minutes to go, and within seconds, he levelled the scores, and then he did get himself another one as well. So, George, you were covering this game. Do you want to explain a little bit about why? I mean, it's fairly self-explanatory, but what impressed you about Vargas, and why do you think he was the player of the round this time?
Yeah, I mean, like you said, it's pretty self-explanatory, James. This one, I mean, they were 2-0 down. He came on within 6 minutes. He'd got them back to 2-2, and they were both his goals. And that's purely why, there was no other real standout candidate. There was Luciano Neves, wasn't there, at Sao Paulo, who got 2 goals as well, and 2 goals in 8 minutes as well, either side of half time for Sao Paulo, in their win. But I just thought, he dragged them out with 16 minutes left. You come on, it was his first touch. He scored. It was a lovely goal. That first one, bent it into the bottom corner, and then he got up well to head that second one in, and he just dragged them out of nothing. It looked like they were going in and losing that game, and he just made the difference. And like I said, fair play to Milito, because he orchestrated that substitution, and your manager gets the plaudits, doesn't he, when it all goes well, and it certainly did for him there. So I don't think really, even though Neves scored 2 goals, I think for me it was always going to be Vargas this week when he got those 2 goals off the bench, affected the game, and effectively got his side a point, really. Yeah,
definitely. And he's not been one of the more heralded players for Gallo in the last couple of years. I mean, we talk about Hulk a lot, and Hulk hasn't really got going this season so far at all. Paulinho's got a couple, but it's not been nobody in the division has really kind of set the stall out as a top scorer, and Vargas actually now is level with Neves. from Sao Paulo as the division's top scorer. Both have got 3 goals. So he's looking like that bit of a super sub. I know players don't necessarily like that tag, but you can't question a player who comes on, and sometimes there are these players who come on and are better off the bench than they are starting. And the first goal especially was really well taken. He kind of took it on his chest a little bit and just kind of hit it on the bounce, arrowed across the goalkeeper. And the second, like you say, I think it rolled off his shoulder a little bit, but again, he found the space well and he directed it nicely across the goal into the corner. So very interesting career, Vargas. I was looking at him a little bit. He's 34, so he's kind of getting on a little bit. He's a Chilean international. And George, I don't know if you remember him at QPR, but I actually do remember him at QPR. He spent a year at QPR in 2014-15, and I remember him because he only scored 3 goals in the Premier League, and one of them was against Liverpool. So I remember that. It was a very late, it was a mad game. I think we beat them 3-2, but there were 4 of the 5 goals were beyond the 87th minute, and Vargas got one of those. So I remember him from that. He's had a bit of a spell in Europe. He was at Napoli for a bit, he was at Valencia, but he's never really taken off anywhere. And the same, I think, is true of Gallo, but he's come on and made a real impact there. So I think he's a well-deserving player of the round this time. And another reason he was notable, actually, he came and he joined Hoffenheim, I think, from Napoli, and he actually replaced another Liverpool connection and a Brazilian connection as well, because he replaced Roberto Firmino, moved to Liverpool from Hoffenheim, and Vargas joined Hoffenheim as a replacement. And I think he spent about 18 months there. It wasn't particularly prolific at all. But yeah, it's a long career, an interesting career, and the last 2 goals of it so far have got his team a really good point.
Yeah, absolutely, and also he's got quite a number of caps for his country, hasn't he, Chile? So yeah, look, vastly experienced player at 34, and like you said, he's been across the globe, he's played in Mexico as well, hasn't he? I think, and
yeah, Tigres.
So he's played all over the place, and fair play to him. Like I said, a couple of good goals there, dragged his team back into it, and maybe he'll be thinking, well, can I start the next one? You know what I mean? It's not out the realms of possibility. It was a great performance from him of a sort of a cameo performance in a way, because it was only a sort of 16 minutes, but he scored 2, and like I said, he dragged his team back into it for a point. So fair play to him, and like you said, well deserved this week. Although, like I said, Luciano Neves, like I said, joint top scorer, got a couple of goals as well. So, who knows, he could, maybe we'll see more of him as the season goes on.
Well, I remember last week there was suggestions from the fans of Sao Paulo that Luciano Neves couldn't finish in a sock. I know you were picking that one up very crudely.
Yeah.
You were picking that one up into the podcast, throwing that out there. And so he's obviously seen that, and I hate to think what he's been doing midweek, but it's obviously worked, and he can finish into the net now. So
yeah, practicing his aim, has he? I don't know. Maybe he saw them on Instagram bemoaning the fact that he couldn't finish the ball off, but he obviously did it. Last night, wasn't it, as of recording? So fair play. A couple of pretty standard goals, as I'm sure we'll come on to next, James. There weren't that many goals, there weren't that many standout goals, but he got 2 of them, and so did Vargas. But I suppose here we are on to the goal of the round, are we?
Well, I was actually going to do young player next.
Oh, yeah, right, okay.
No, let's do goal now. You've kind of said you've put it out there, and like you said, we've been a bit spoiled these opening few rounds, because there's been, every week so far there seems to have been about 4 or 5 belters, and it's been really difficult to pick one based on the quality of them. But this week it was a bit the opposite. It was kind of difficult to pick one because there wasn't that many goals. Obviously we were missing 3 games, and there was also the quality of them wasn't quite like we've seen. But there was still a couple of nice goals, a couple of nice headers, and there was a nice diving header, I think, from Luciano Neves. It was actually for Sao Paulo. It was a really nice diving header. There's a couple of well-worked team goals. I know in your game of the week, Jermaine Cano, he got a nicely worked team goal. But yeah, were any stand out before we reveal the one that we plumped for? Was there any else that you wanted to just kind of mention as honorable mentions?
Well, I liked Henrique in for Flamengo, and I know Henrique scored for RB as well, didn't he? But obviously a different man. It was a nice goal, this, because I like the ball through from De La Cruz as well. He just kind of dinked it over the defence, and it was a lovely first touch, and it was just a nice sort of slotted finish. But I was plumbing for this one for until the very sort of last of it, really. But I thought I quite enjoyed that one. The rest of them, like I said, I actually liked Jeffino's
Oh yeah,
for Botafogo. It was like a bit of a sort of a fortuitous sort of knockdown, but he finished it off really nicely, like almost like a sort of scissor kick sort of thing. Like I said, it was a bit of a fortuitous kind of bounce, but he finished it off nicely. And I kind of like that one. I was thinking about that one a little bit, but overall there was no standout, to be fair. There was some nice sort of in another way kind of goals, but nothing to write home about, really. So
no, and which is why we've gone for something. It was kind of caught the eye a bit as something quite different, and that was for Sao Paulo's third goal. So Luciano Neves, obviously, as we've said, bagged the first two, and he very nearly got a hat trick. Actually, he was right on the end of this, like a ball into the box, and the keeper just got a touch on it, and I think the defender as well, a combination, kind of cleared it away. Otherwise, Neves would have had a hat trick, but anyway, they cleared it, and it came out to Nahuel Ferraresi, who did a lovely little shimmy beyond the kind of sliding challenge of the defender. And then it's kind of, we'll give him the benefit of the doubt because it could well be across this. I mean, I don't think it was, but he shimmies around the outstretched leg of the defender just deftly. And then he kind of pokes it with either the outside of his boot or a toe poke. I think it was the outside of his boot, wasn't it? And it kind of flicks up and it goes in off the bar. And it's just there's loads of bodies between him and the goal, and it's the only place he could have put that where it would have gone in. And it's just such a nice little finish that it's not a goal that you see every day. And I liked Enrique's finish as well. Nice take, nice touch, nice finish. But I think this was just lacked that X factor, that one. So Ferraresi, it had everything. It was complete X factor. There was nothing else in it. It was a lovely goal, and it finished the game off for Sao Paulo, and they've really hit the straps now. But yeah, I enjoyed that from Ferraresi. I don't know what you made of it, George. I know, like you said, you were pushing for Enrique, but I think this was a goal that kind of stands out as one that you just don't see every day.
Yeah, like I said, I like the Henrique goal because it was, nice ball forward, nice, he just killed the ball with a touch and then just slotted it under the goalkeeper. But yeah, this one, it had to be really. He's a centre back as well, James. You know what I mean? You don't see that sort of composure really from a sort of centre back to kind of put him on his backside, the defender, and then just like lift it into the net. It was a wonderful goal. Like you said, it sealed the game really for Sao Paulo, which I think became a little bit of a nervous affair really after the early sending off for Vitoria. But it was a lovely finish, and it had to be that one in the end, I thought. Like I said, from a centre back as well. But you don't generally see the sort of composure that he showed. He just kind of got the ball. Defender was coming towards him. All right, I'll just poke it past you. I'll poke it to the side, and then finish it off. So yeah, it was well deserved this week. Not many to like I said to write home about, but this one certainly will probably live long in his memory. I don't think he scores that many goals, to be fair. So
well, he doesn't. I didn't realise he was a centre back. Actually, I didn't think it would have been a shot. Then maybe it was, but it did have the look of. The first touch was amazing, and then the second one was a bit like, what do I do now? And then he just kind of dinked it, and it kind of went in. But he doesn't play a great deal for Sao Paulo, and he's Venezuelan, 25 years old. He's actually formerly of, I don't know what the circumstances of this were, but he's been in Man City's academy only a couple of years ago, so he's quite a relatively older player. I know he was at Montevideo City Torque, which are part of the City group. So he seems to have perhaps gone from there and spent some time in the city setup. Maybe he just came and had a bit of maybe they cast an eye over him and just had a look at what they can do with him, or maybe he can come in somewhere. And in the end, he's ended up at Sao Paulo, and so he's not a big player for them. It was a big moment. He really celebrated it. And yeah, I think again a well-deserving goal of the week. And just to touch on Sao Paulo as well, they did start difficultly. Obviously, they sacked Carpini a couple of weeks back, and Zubeldia's come in. Since he's been in, they've been unbeaten in 5. So they are moving up the table. They are looking like the team that won the Copa do Brasil last year under Dorival Jr. So I like the look of Sao Paulo, what we're seeing. They made the change very early on. It doesn't always work. That we did say perhaps they'll regret that, but Zubeldia's come in and really had them kind of moving nicely along. What do you make of the way they've kind of bounced back?
Yeah, I think it's good. It's what I expected of them, James. To be honest with you, Sao Paulo, I thought, yeah, maybe they'll have a good season. Didn't start well, but like you said, sometimes it doesn't work out by sacking the manager early. It seems to have been the right decision to make, and obviously they got it wrong. They'll admit they got it wrong. It was obviously Carpini was a new appointment, and he didn't last long at all. They obviously got the wrong man. And the new manager has got them going nicely, and I see them kind of rising up the table a little bit now, and it's good to see. Like I said, I did, earmark them as a a team to be, a bit of a challenge, bit of a surprise. So we'll wait and see, but I think certainly the early signs of Zubeldia of his tenure, it seems to be very positive, really.
Yeah, so since they sacked Carpini 5 games, I think Zubeldia has been in for 4 of those, but they've won 4, and the only draw was away at Palmeiras. No, home to Palmeiras, I think it was in the end. But either way, no shame in that. So they'll be very happy with the way things are going. And when you've got centre backs like Ferraresi popping up with goals like that, then things are kind of going your way. So that's the goal of the round. Well done to Nahuel Ferraresi, and well done to Sao Paulo for bouncing back and kind of getting another big win on the road. Vitoria, just on those, they're struggling a little bit, like having come up, the things just haven't really got going for them yet, but we'll touch on them a little bit at the end, Vitoria. So let's move on to the young player of the round, and another team actually who have got a new manager, made a manager change, but the performance this time was against them. So I think, again, you easily picked out this guy as the young player of the round, didn't you, George? Do you want to just introduce him? And he'll need no introduction actually for a lot of listeners who will probably know exactly who we're talking about already.
Yeah, I mean, as soon as I've seen this guy scored a goal and that, you had to put him in. It's Estavio, James, for Palmeiras. 17-year-old, just turned 17 a few weeks ago, or even maybe a couple of weeks ago even. So unbelievable talent. I know there's a lot of talk around him at the moment. He won the penalty in this instance, and then he said, you know what, I'm going to stick it away. And he did. And you can't say any fairer than that. Obviously, he's got his mate, he's got his mate Endrick as well on the team as well, who's same age, but he's going on 18, isn't he now? But, there's 2 young lads there that you might, that are obviously enjoying the football. Endrick is on his way to Europe. I think Estivo is as well, isn't he?
Well, Estival is the chap they call Messinho. So, I mean, it wasn't just a penalty. Okay, he scored a penalty, but the real amazing thing, and this was the way he won the penalty. So he dribbled past about 3 players out on the right wing, zigzagging and out of them. And eventually there was nothing the defenders could do but take him down. And he steps up and he just absolutely blasts the penalty home into the top corner. So, it isn't just for the penalty, it's for the way he won the penalty. And like you said, he was a substitute. The chap he came on for, actually. So, yeah, Palmeiras have got 2 very big talents there, but they've also got Luis Guilherme, who's a huge talent, 18-year-old. And he was in with the shout of young player of the round as he got a nice assist, a nice cross ball in for Lazaro to get the opener in this game. So he was in with the shout. But I think when you see a player like Esteval do that at 17, turn the defenders inside out, such confidence to get up and take the penalty as well. And it was his second goal in 2 games. He also scored in the midweek in the Cup, which was his first ever goal for Palmeiras. So he's really standing out now. And Endrick, like we spoke about last week, has kind of stuttered a bit at the start. He hasn't really got going. And Esteval Willian has really stepped up and filled that spot. And like you say, of course, admiring glances from Europe. There's been a lot of talk this week that Chelsea have come in already with a big bid for him. But I think that isn't quite accurate from what I've kind of heard. But it does sound like he's not going to be at Palmeiras for too much as they'd love to keep him. And it's match week 5 now, isn't it? So it's about time we did cover Messinho. And I think he's going to be a player that we hear a heck of a lot more about.
Yeah, I'm sure it is, James. You know what I mean? And Hendrick, until he goes to Madrid, will, maybe he will pick up, or maybe he'll just hand the baton on to him and say, "Hey, it's your time now. You do your thing there and win then the league." Also, like you said, Guilherme as well in there as well. You said Liverpool maybe sniffing around him as well. He's only 18.
Yeah.
So he's only 18. So European sides are sniffing around these lads, and like you said, when he can do what he can do, I know it's against a team who maybe at that stage of the game as well, maybe had given up even in the 70th minute of the game, and the quality is definitely not in that team. But still, he's a young lad. He's playing men's football, and he's doing that to full grown men. You know what I mean? So it's amazing, these lads and these Brazilian players that they can churn out, and it looks like he's another one on the conveyor belt, really.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, he'll have to keep in mind what's happened to Vitor Roque and also what happened to Vinicius Junior after he left Brazil, because it took a long time to get to where he is today. So he doesn't want to make the wrong move, and I think Chelsea isn't the right move for any young player at the moment. But games like this, performances like that are only going to kind of heighten interest in him and heighten awareness of just how good he is already. But yeah, Palmeiras, better result for them. I mean, it's a game they had to win really away at Cuiabá. They've not started well, Palmeiras, and the young lads, Guilherme and Estevão, are real bright sparks for them, and they seem to be the two that are kind of illuminating the season a little bit. But, they are up to 6th now. I think they're only 2 points off the top, Palmeiras. So, there's been a bit of a slow start, but they're kind of getting going a bit. And this was probably a kind fixture for them to have at this stage of the season. And like I said at the top there, Cuiabá were under a new manager. I think it was Peti's first game. So they've hired Petit, the former Portugal international, who I remember from the 06 World Cup. So Petit has been at Bordeaux. I think he's been managing in Portugal for a number of years, and he's come across to Cuiabá to see if he can kind of turn their season around, really. But obviously, this isn't the game that they're going to do that. I don't know what you make of that appointment, George, and do you see Cuiabá kind of turning things around a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting one, isn't it, James? Like you said, and I do remember him as well now. I do remember him playing for Portugal in the tournaments and things. And yeah, look, they had to do something. I know gosh, don't give them long, do they? I think the other fella had like 3 games, did he? And then he's gone. So, and they'd literally just appointed him as well. So, like we said at the start when we were predicting where people might go, I think we both had Cuiabá as relegation fodder, really, and I think that'll be it. I think that I don't see them improving. Maybe he'll improve them a little bit, but I do think it's even at this stage, and I know they've played less than some of them. All the teams in 3 of the 4 teams in the relegation zone currently have played 4 instead of 5 games, but I just don't see it improving. I think they'll go down, and there you go. But it's an incredible achievement for them to get to where they've been, having just been, formed in, what was it, 2008, I think it was. So incredible, really. But I think the time has probably run out this season at least, and I just don't see where the goal's going to come from in that team. I really don't see, where they're going to come from in the team here. That they've got this big lad who looks a bit like a Viking up front, and I just don't know what he offers. Pitta is called Pitta, and he just. I just don't understand where the goals are going to come from at all. There's
Well, they've got Davison. I mean, Davison was a player who's got a decent number of goals last year, and I think he's still there, but I'm not sure if he's been playing. I think there was some questions about whether he was staying, but I think he is still there. But for some reason, he's not been in the team. I don't think Davison. But yeah, it doesn't look great for Cuiabá. It's looking like there's been on an upward trajectory throughout the history so far, but it does feel as though this one might be the one where they have to just take a bit of a step back. But anyway, this was, just touch on Cuiabá there, but we want to give Esteval Willian his flowers, and he's our young player of the round this time, and a well-deserved one. And I think everybody in Brazil and beyond, even now in Europe, are excited to see just how far this young man can go. So I think he's a player we'll have to keep more of an eye on and enjoy really while we can, because I think he will be not long before he does go off to a big side in Europe. So yeah, that's the awards for this kind of week. So 3 more well-deserving winners, 3 more different winners. So we've got hopefully a full round of fixtures to look forward to pick from this week. So George, I don't know if you just want to run through the games that we're looking at before we just touch on the 2 that we're going to pick out as the games of the week.
Yeah, so I'll run through your fixture list then, James. Through it, supposedly again, it's a match day 6, spans 4 days. So we'll run through this in a second. So we've got here. It starts on Saturday, 11th of May. Flamengo against Corinthians is the 8 p.m. kickoff. At 9 p.m. English time is Criciúma against Cuiabá. Into Sunday morning, then the 12th of May, 1 a.m. English time, Galo face Grêmio. 3 p.m. English time, Vasco da Gama hosts Vitória. Big sort of relegation battle, early battle, that one. Atlético GO face Cruzeiro at 8 p.m. on Sunday evening. Also at 8 p.m. English time is Fortaleza against Botafogo. Palmeiras host Paranense as well at the same time. Then 10:30, Bahia are at home to RB Bragantino. Monday the 13th of May, then 11 p.m. English time, Sao Paulo are at home to Fluminense. And to finish off the match day, if it goes ahead, as we know, is a local derby between Internacional and Juventude, which happens on 1 a.m. English time, Tuesday the 14th of May. And that concludes match day 6 fixtures, James.
Fantastic. Yeah, so again, like always, we're going to pick out two matches to watch and comment on a little bit more in depth. So we decided, I mean, there's a couple of big games there, but we're going to overlook them for this week, and we're just going to focus on the other end of the table initially. So, George, you wanted to cover this one, Vasco against Vitória. So what do you see happening in that, and why do you think that's a good one to pick out this time?
Well, I know you've looked at Vasco this week, James, but I just thought, yeah, there are some nice looking games there, some interesting looking matches. One in particular, maybe Palmeiras and Paranense, the way Paranense have started, or Galo against Grêmio. But I just think maybe we haven't touched on the sort of relegation battle and the relegation battle that's forming at the bottom of the table. So I just thought maybe give some other teams a bit of the spotlight and look at them and look at teams that maybe we wouldn't look at, because that's not a really attractive game to look at, is it? Vasco against Vitória. But with the weight that goes on it, the early weight that goes on it, I just thought maybe that will be an interesting one to look at. Vasco might have a new coach by then as well, so interesting to see how they react to that. So yeah, I just thought focus maybe turn on a little bit of the the bottom of the table instead of the top teams and the top of the table, really.
Yeah, that should be a good one. It'll be a big, if somebody can get a win out of that, it'll be a big 3 points. And if for whoever loses that game, things are really going to start looking a little bit bleak. But still early days. But yeah, the big one to go for. I'd suggest the pressure's on Vasco for that one. Like you say, they may have a new manager, they may not, but they're at home. They're the home team for it, and they nearly went down last year. But they're a big club in their own right, and they won't want to be setting up for another relegation struggle this year. So yeah, looking forward to that one. Should be something good, and I'm going to cover as long as it goes ahead. My club Internacional, like George said, it's a Rio Grande do Sul derby, not a local derby as such, different cities, but a regional derby against Juventude. So we're going to see, hopefully, the weather is improved by then and things are a little more under control. And hopefully the football can take the minds off things a little bit for 90 minutes at least. But we'll see. If that one doesn't go ahead, if that one does go ahead, we'll be covering that International against Juventude. And if not, we will be looking at Sao Paulo against Fluminense, isn't it? I think we said. So fingers crossed that things are in a place. I don't think there's been any official announcement yet if that game will go ahead at the time of recording. But if it does, we'll be there in spirit, and we'll be kind of cheering on both sides in hopes that the supporters of both are able to have some cheer after what's been a really awful time for them. So 2 big games. 2 interesting games to look at. Like George says, we always want to put the spotlight on all the teams and get to know them all. So we don't want to always be looking at those games towards the other end of the table at the top. So yeah, 2 big games to look for there, George. And I know that whatever's happened this week has had quite an impact on the table. So do you want to just run through the table and see what's occurring after match day 4?
Match day 5.
I keep forgetting that because we missed one, didn't we? Or we did one together.
Yeah,
match day 5. Yeah.
Let's say it's match day 6 next. That you'll be here in a flash, I suppose.
Well, yeah, it will be, won't it?
But yeah, I'll run through the table, James. It'd be a pleasure of mine. And so yeah, so if we go ahead and we have new leaders at the top of Serie A after match day 5. Parinense lead the way on 10 points. Also on 10, like we said, Bahia, impressive winners at Botafogo. They're in second. In third is Botafogo, and they're on 9 points. So yeah, they're on 9 points. Fourth is Galo on 9 points, and also fifth is RB Bragantino, also on 9 points. In sixth, the riser this week is Palmeiras on 8 points. Also on 8 points behind them is Flamengo in 7th on 8. Now 8th to 10th all have 7 points. It goes Sao Paulo in 8th, Inter 9th, Cruzeiro 10th, and then come Grêmio in 11th on 6th. On 6 points. In 12th is Fortaleza, also on 6 points. Now 13th to 16th all have 5 points. Criciúma in 13th, Corinthians 14th, Juventude in 15th, and Fluminense ludicrously sitting just a place above the relegation zone in 16th on 5 points. Into the relegation zone, James, Vasco on 3 points are in 17th, and then 1 point each is Vitória in 18th and Atletico GO in 19th place. And like we said, propping up the table as always is Cuiabá, yet to score a single point. No good.
No good indeed. And we didn't really mention Bahia actually. We touched on them briefly, and I know the title of the show this week, but they are sitting level on points with Atletico at the top of the table, and I actually had them down as relegation favourites this year, and that's not to say that things won't go that way for them eventually, but what a win for them this week away at Botafogo, who had started to build up a little bit of a head of steam and might have been thinking that they could have a similar start to last year, but yeah, Bahia were in the way, and they got a really impressive win away at Botafogo this week.
They did, James, and like I said, it was the first ever Brazilian match I've watched from start to finish, and I was delighted to watch it. It was great to see, and I've got to say that Bahia, it was a classic away performance, a sort of counter-attack performance. They didn't have hardly anything in the game. They won a penalty, which Rivaldo scored right on half time and added on time at the end of the first half. And then it was all Botafogo the second half, really hammering at the door. They got the equaliser with Jafino, and you thought maybe they would go on to win it. They only had a real one chance through the substitute Cuyabano, who should have scored, really. Keeper saved it, but there wasn't much in it in terms of any kind of dominance of shots and stuff. It was more Botafogo just had a lot of pressure, a lot of the ball, and didn't really do much with it. But you've got to say, Rogério Ceni as well, with his substitution, he's got it spot on again, James. 2 subs that came on in the second half. Carlos De Pina and also Rafael Rateo, they both combined for the winning goal, and they both came on first one in the 72nd minute. So Cini's got it right again with his subs. It was a bit of a mistake for this goal initially. I don't know what the goalkeeper's doing right outside his box. It's one pass and Rateo's in. He rounds him and he just pokes it in the empty goal, and that's it. You know what I mean? But I must admit, I really enjoyed hearing the commentary all live. I mean, it was all in English, but he still did the go, 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 when Botafogo scored. I mean, he wasn't very impressed, obviously, when Bahia scored, but, that there you go, like, that was it. But, yeah, I really enjoyed it. I hope they do more, because it's really not very easy at all over here in England to watch any of the games in full at all. So I was delighted when I saw that, and it was obviously completely free, streamed on YouTube. So yeah, it was good.
Yeah, we'll watch out for anything else, any more of those. I don't know if other teams are going to plan them, but yeah, Ceni's got his subs right again. I know we spoke about Biel a couple of weeks ago, and he was coming on as a super sub, so he seems to be coming into his own as a manager there at Bahia. But anyway, that kind of concludes another week of Talking Brazil Ball. So hopefully we'll get a full round of fixtures this time, and things improve over in Rio Grande do Sul, and we'll be able to bring you another episode next time. So closing thoughts, George. Another good match week. Atletico Paranaense sit top of the table. Bahia are doing well. Cuiabá needs some points. What a match week.
Yeah, what a week, James. What a good week. And what I'll say to you is enjoy your holiday and come back refreshed. Keep an eye on what's going on over in Brazil there. And yeah, what a week it's been. What a good week. Hopefully some more goals, some standout goals next time, and some more performances that we can enjoy.
Well, I'm sure we will. I'm sure we'll savour it all. And thank you very much. I'll be away keeping across things in the Brasileirão. So for now, George, have you got the back you fudged the intro music? Have you got the outro music ready?
Yeah, I think I do, James, here. So here we go.
Yeah, there's some music. Okay. Thanks for listening, everybody. Get us followed on the socials if you haven't done yet. And adios. Until next week.
Yeah, adios. See you next week.